Tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Oh, I didn't mean to hit that, but okay. 3.
Good morning, Swarm, and welcome to Tinfoil Hat. You know I am. You know what I'm here to do. I'm here to rock. Joining me as always, Xavier Guerrero, and from WeWorks, Jay Nice, Johnny Woodard. How are you?
Always. We work in this place. We
Johnny,
get work
you're in
done.
North Carolina?
Yeah. Just got here.
So, guys, today we have an amazing podcast, an amazing episode for you. We have HypnoFertility therapist Lynsi Eastburn on, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's one of the best conversations we've ever had on this show. It's a little change of pace, and I loved it. Your guys' thoughts?
Who even knew that was a thing? Hypno. What is it? Hypno fertility.
HypnoFertility. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, dude, we're in a spiritual war, man, and this is a big part of it. And you know,
2 words: spirit babies. That's my takeaway from this. I loved it.
That.
I love. She says she just says, "Yeah, I had a couple spirit babies come to me," and I'm looking at you. I keep looking at you guys like, is anybody going to ask her what a spirit baby is?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know if it's around. If it comes, it just comes.
You know, you got like 14 of them.
I mean, did you know what a spirit baby was? I couldn't believe nobody.
Well, I did because I already talked to her.
Oh, I see. Okay.
In the past episode. Anyways, so real quick. So go to samtripoli.com. All right. If you want to see me live, listen, we're in Boise on the 28th. I'm in Boise on July 28th. I'm in Ventura in July 29th. Now, August 12th, dude, tickets are moving quick to this one. Broadbook Opera House, Houdini, whatever.
Houdini, the magician.
Houdini performed at this opera house. Myself, Eddie Bravo, and Xavier Guerrero will be there. And now we're proud to announce that if everything goes according to plan, we're just waiting for the ticket link. August 13th, we are going to be at the Cutting Room in New York City. 2 shows, 1 price. We're going to be doing stand-up and then Q&A. Listen, it's going to be on the website. Grab your tickets now. There's only 200 seats. We're going to pack this out. Let's go, NYC. Let's go. Bang, bang, pow. And if you're looking for more exclusive content from this show, we are on rockfin.com. We have just go to rockfin.com and tinfoil hat. Premium content, 0 for free, and we have Conspiracy Social Club available. You can also get Broken Sim, and you can also get We Don't Smoke the Same, all on Rockfin. I myself am uploading 5 episodes a week to Rockfin, all for $15. Now, here's the thing: for $15, you get everybody on the website. That's ROKFIN. Check out the Cash Daddy's Patreon if you're looking to invest. And we have so many amazing affiliate programs. All this stuff is to help you survive the zombie apocalypse, survive the chaos that is the spiritual war. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Oh, t-shirts. New t-shirts are going up all the time. tinfoilhattshirts.com. Go check them out. We got different t-shirts. All this new stuff's going up. I just got pitched a bunch of new t-shirts. Very excited. We also have the mystery t-shirt, which is the Unabomber t-shirt. Go check it out. Anything else, guys?
New Broken Sim is out there. We took a week off, and the new one's out there. Check it out. It's a good one.
There we go.
Anything for you? We good? Okay. So that's it. So let's get to it. Please enjoy this amazing episode with Lynsi Eastburn.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink
All right, let's get into it. Very excited to talk to this our next guest. She was on my Zero podcast. She said some pretty amazing things that really resonated with me, and kind of another piece in the puzzle of that you try to put together to understand where we live, what's going on with us, the spiritual war. So I'm very excited to have her here on the big show. She's an author and she's a board certified hypnotherapist. Please welcome Lynsi Eastburn. How are you, Lynsi?
Hi, Sam. I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing well. We didn't introduce you to everybody. With the A on his hat, that's Johnny, and my other co-host is Xavier Guerrero.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lynsi. For those who may not have listened to your appearance on my spiritual podcast, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Yes, I am a board certified hypnotherapist. As you said, I created a method called HypnoFertility to basically help women get pregnant with hypnosis. That's expanded quite a bit. You can most easily find me at my website, which is hypnofertility.com.
Awesome. So there's a lot to get into. I was really blown away by a lot of stuff you were talking about on during our last conversation. And, as we know, we're watching the world. It seems like it's on chaos. It's like the world's on fire. A big problem right now is depopulation. Nobody's having children. And it's kind of crazy that, just before this conversation, I was on Twitter, and they had a woman on she was on TikTok, and she was talking about she's really torn between whether she really wants to have kids, but then she doesn't want to have kids. She was talking like, should I sacrifice my body, my time, and all that stuff? And what is everybody's thoughts? And to me, that's like just this crazy kind of concept that there's that, and women in particular are struggling on whether they want to be mothers or not, which seemed like in the past that was like there was no discussion. It was like that's what they want to do, and maybe we were taught that was a form of the patriarchy and stuff like that. But the more and more I study all this thing, the more and more I start to realize that like we have an arc in our life, and we're meant to have fun and do all this stuff, and then we're meant to like kind of our worlds get smaller and we get with our family. And I know that a lot of people like at my age are kind of like missed out on that. And I wonder if deep down inside that they're kind of sad about it. So I want to start, there was a lot, but what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, the first thing I would say to that is, ow, it actually hurts my heart to hear that. I think it's wonderful when people do not want to have children and they know that, and then they don't go ahead and have children that they don't want. I think that's really awesome. I think it's kind of sad that people are having to overthink it, I guess, so much. And there's so many things that are going on in the world. I've had a lot of accomplishments in the world, but my children are number one to me always. And, they're 28, 33 now, and I have a little grandbaby, but ultimately those are my inspiration. Those fill my heart. And it's great if people don't want to have children, but when they do, and when maybe they're thinking that they don't because they're overthinking it or they're concerned, that's the part of what you were referring to that pains me.
I also think that sometimes we have parts of society, maybe our older generations, not old, but older, that aren't 100% honest with the younger generations. And that sometimes there's this toe the line kind of idealism where, I was told one thing about what's going to make me happy. And maybe at my age, I realized that wasn't true, but I'm going to toe the line and continue this discussion. And again, you're totally right. If you don't want to have kids, you don't have to have kids. And that is fine. But I just feel like there's, I remember when I was really young and, I was in college, and my ex-girlfriend, who I was really friends with, she was dating her professor, who she ended up marrying and having kids with. And he was talking about how the running and the gunning, this is the nice way of saying it, the fast lifestyle doesn't go on forever. And when I was 21, I'm like, you're crazy, bro. It's always going to go on. It's always going to be on. I'm always going to be crushing it. And I'm going to be out there whining and dining and meeting these ladies and that ladies. And it's always going to be like that. And now at my age, I'm like, it's not always like that. And it's not even like a sad note. Like, it's not like, no, it's like, I'm not interested in that anymore. That does not interest me anymore. And I just feel that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that a lot of the older generation isn't honest with the younger generation about the cycle of life and where we go and all that stuff. And there's this toe the line kind of mentality that to me almost borders on misery loves company. And any thoughts on that?
Well, there's definitely a biological clock. And so a lot of the clients I work with, some mine are average of around 45 years old, which is in a sense unheard of because people are thinking 40 and over is, not a possibility. And a lot of my clients say to me, I didn't want any kids until I was 35. And, I thought that I wanted to do all of this. And then they're hurt and they're frustrated because they realize they actually do want a family. Sometimes relationships break up later on down the road because somebody is saying that they don't want children because the partner doesn't want any children, but on some level they're hoping that somebody is going to change their mind. We all want to stay young. You look at you look at TV, you look at media, you look at celebrities and what is it? 60s, the new 40, 50s, the new 20. And I do think that there's some misleading going on. And for me, my point in life, I was like you. I thought all of that was going to go on forever, but I've entered the crone stage of maiden mother crone, the wisdom time, the time to reflect and to be able to share, offer wisdom. If I have any, ideally, people by this stage have accumulated some wisdom. So I would absolutely agree with you there.
So let's get into what you do. Tell me a little bit about what is HypnoFertility.
So HypnoFertility is basically using hypnosis to help with pregnancy or to help overcome infertility. I don't like the word infertility because it is, from my standpoint, anti-hypnotic. We don't really want to focus on what we don't want. A lot of infertility I discovered is very much in the mind. We have so much more access to so many more things these days. We have, social media, we have podcasts and television and news and all of those kinds of things. And so we hear a lot of what end up being hypnotic suggestions about what's possible, what's not possible, what's going to happen to you, all of those kind of things. When I started working with women, I kind of fell into this. I was in private practice with my husband, kind of a general practice. And when women came in to see me, started coming in, it was like, I know there's a baby there, but I've been told I have a 0% chance of ever having a baby. I've been told to go home and figure out how to be childless or look into an adoption, but I don't believe that. I feel that I have a baby there. And I always said, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And so I started working with them from there. And technology's changed a lot over more than 20 years. And so what doctors were saying, you're not a candidate for IVF at that time, that's changed, since then. But what was happening is I just went ahead and worked with women, and there was no hypnosis fertility thing. There was no training in it. It wasn't known as anything. I just worked with hypnosis. I'm, a hypnotherapist, and I worked with whatever was coming up for them. What I ended up finding out was hypnosis was really, really effective for helping them to have their babies. And all of these babies started popping up even, naturally. Women didn't go back to a clinic, or they went back to a clinic and their numbers had changed, or they went to a different clinic. They were told they wouldn't be able to carry, and all of a sudden they can carry. Things were changing. And I just continue to go with it. It evolved. I mean, there's a spiritual component to this. There's, of course, the mind-body piece. Hypnosis, I consider it the antithesis of stress. And stress is a big part of fertility struggles. It's not just stress. Nothing is, black and white, cut and dried, but it is definitely powerful. And a lot of times we don't realize that we have the amount of stress that we actually do. I lost your volume.
Sorry, I muted myself because
no worries.
I'm recording from home and the dog was going nuts. But Lynsi, one of the biggest pieces of information that I got from you is that human beings are the only animal, or maybe the only, and I hope I'm not jumping points here, but we're the only animal that stays in fight and flight all the time, like all the time, and what that does to our birth rate. And so can you get into that a little bit? Because that really blew my mind about, like, when I look at our culture, I believe social media is a trauma deliverance system where we find out about, hey, there was a stabbing in Cincinnati, which in any other time in history, we would never hear about that. Now, suddenly it's all over Twitter, it's all over Instagram,
Right.
And now it's at our front door. And now someone's going to stab us on our porch. And now we're in this fear of getting stabbed everywhere all the time. And that really, like, when you said that, really, like, I'm like, wow, you're totally right. I mean, look at and particularly with women, like, how many women are into this murder entertainment that we have out there, these murder podcasts, these crime podcasts. How many people how many women love to watch the ID channel or the First 48? And the reason I know that a lot of women watch it are based on the commercials. Mm-hmm. What are the commercials running? They're women products and stuff like that. Who's watching the show. So can you go into a little bit of that?
Absolutely. And I confess, I like the ID channel. My son refers to it as my murder channel.
Women love that.
From a hypnotic standpoint, too, that is like an opposing stress. So in watching something like that, it actually does help us to, take our stress levels down a little bit. It sounds counterintuitive maybe, but there really is something, to that. So yes, those the ID channel is doing quite well. Absolutely. When I will tell you, I've liked that show, Fear Thy Neighbor. When the house next door went up for sale, I wouldn't watch Fear Thy Neighbor because I was afraid I might, law of attraction it or something. So I just try to keep.
I know, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Yeah. So you don't think that and again, you're a woman, so you would know this better than I do, but you don't think that things like Neighborhood, like, as great as they are for maybe going, okay, something's going down Neighborhood, we should maybe lock down the doors, but there's also a little bit of, hey, there's a lot of crime around you. Guys, I want to tell you about our friends at Copy My Crypto. That's right, James McMahon and Copy My Crypto. Listen, everybody, we've seen so many people making ridiculous money in crypto, but did you know it's easy for you to do the same? The Copy My Crypto membership site shows you the coins that YouTuber James McMahon personally holds and allows you to copy him, okay? It's like having a big brother who knows what he's doing. You don't need to know anything about crypto or how to invest. You simply do what he does. So let me tell you about James. He runs Crypto with James YouTube channel, which despite heavy censorship has over 26,000 subscribers. Since 2020, he's told his viewers to buy 26 crypto coins. Had you put in $100 into each one, it went on to be worth $120,000. Of the 26 coins, his top pick of the year, a coin called Phantom, went up 692 times from when he said. That one call retired a number of people, including guys in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is all public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify for yourself. So if you'd like to join the 2,800 members who copy James, then stop what you're doing right now and head over to copymycrypto.com/TFH. That's copymycrypto.com/TFH. That's TFH. You'll not only find proof of everything I've said, but my listeners gain full access for just $1. Once again, that's copymycrypto.com/TFH. The recession is here, guys. You can suffer like everyone else or choose to thrive. James is a real deal. Go visit his site now.
There's kind of a couple things definitely going on there. And watching those shows, I mean, I watch them occasionally. And if you get addicted to those shows and you start getting terrified of all of these things that are going to happen, I mean, the number of serial killers. When I was getting my undergrad psych degree, one of the professors I had was captain of the police department in Denver. And he said, if we had as many murders in real life as we have on those shows, there'd be no population. There would be no one left on the world. So if we start getting sucked into that, absolutes are terrible, and so are extremes. Anything we get sucked into to an extreme is going to be detrimental to us. But watching, a show like that here and there, as long as we know, I mean, there's a reality. Some of those shows are absolutely real. And, whatever that ends up doing for people, sometimes it can be a positive thing. Like I said, it's like heavy metal music. People went all crazy on heavy metal music at one point. But heavy metal music, and some of the words are terrible, or some of the, now some of the, you can tell I'm dating myself to the 70s, 80s here, but, some of the music now, same type of thing. The words are terrible, but there's a beat to it. There's an energy to it that really kind of helps us to build up and then sort of let go of some of that tensive energy that we are carrying.
And let's not forget, you learned some things from those shows, like always get a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, half those people don't know. On the first 48, they just start talking. I'm like, how many seasons before you realize that you should ask for a lawyer? But okay. And so this is a guy asking a woman this. Is there a part of the attraction? Because I believe, and I could be wrong, I have no statistics just based on the amount of people who do these podcasts, but this murder entertainment, the demographics are very high female. And I'm wondering, is it because like murder is like probably the highest form of emotion in terms of like the passion and the emotion that comes with something like that? Is that ever a reason that women are so into these murder shows?
Well, I can't speak for all women. Definitely. We tend to be the victims. If you look at the statistics, it's sure. Women who get murdered most of the time. I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but we are, we're threatened. We are, I know women in a lot of ways don't like this, but there's a reality to, walking the streets by yourself at night in certain areas. There's, my husband and I used to have this conversation about this, because I was always about locking the doors, and I'm from the city, right? I'm from Toronto. I'm always going to lock doors. It's just ingrained into me. But he'd say, you don't need to lock the doors. People want to come in. I said, no, when a woman is here alone, if our assistant was there or me, I'll tell you, I didn't book clients for anger issues, male clients at 9:00 at night by myself. Never did that. But I would say it's crime of opportunity a lot of times. Somebody comes in and then they just realize there's a female alone, and it can just shift something. So we would kind of argue about that. And then, he'd go into, well, law of attraction, maybe you're manifesting it. No, stop that. And so we've kind of changed, he's changed his experience with that. And interestingly, there was a shooting that occurred a few years ago, road rage, and a young guy shot a woman and her kids. And it was two buildings over, almost like house-sized buildings over from our office. And our assistant was there alone. And fortunately, the doors were locked because he went running through looking for
my
a place
God.
to go. And I said to my husband, thank the great goddess she had that door locked. He didn't try to get in our office per se, but he wouldn't have been able to, had he tried. And so, I think we are very much aware of that, even if we don't want to admit it. It's a reality. And I think it empowers us somewhat to be able to watch that. It also does help us to have awareness in mind. I have 2 master's degrees, one in English, one in depth psychology, and I have a third one in criminal psychopathology. I don't use that one, in my bio and so forth, but to me, it's how do people's minds work? People say, well, I can't believe, they would never do that. Somebody would never do that, but they would do that because they have, they're a psychopath or they're a sociopath or they're not the way the rest of us are. It's an interesting direction this conversation goes, but it actually will circle around to the infertility crisis.
So when you said it's the opportunity that hits, I always tell my sister that when she gets in an Uber, the second she gets in there, she has to tell them, I'll be there in 20 minutes, even though it's a fake call, because that guy instantly knows she's going to be somewhere. And I can't do that. And if she starts saying, oh, I'm home alone, no one lives with me, you're giving that guy a thought that he never had.
But that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And maybe you should say, yeah, my driver's name is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I literally just saw that. When you get an Uber, just say, I'll be there in 20 minutes. This guy instantly shuts it off. Someone's waiting for her. If 20 minutes she's not there, something's going to trigger something.
Apple has a new feature in the new iOS that's coming out too that allows you to send ETAs to people and stuff, and they can track you while you're going places temporarily, just to make sure you get there. Like if you're going on a date or something, you can send it to a family member. It's going to be built into iOS.
Right. Well, and we are we do feel like we do need to be protected. And in many ways we do. I got to Chicago. My one son is living there, and I got to Chicago, and there's warning signs everywhere. Do not accept a ride from anybody who, you haven't, booked an appointment with, basically, or called an Uber. If anyone's there, oh, I've got an Uber for you, or I can, don't do that. And there's signs up there for a reason, because those things have been a problem. It's funny because that used to be that was the thing you expected when you entered a third world airport. Those like, hey, don't just get in any cab. Only get the official cabs. But it's come to America now, hasn't it? Wow.
For sure. So let's just circle back to what we wanted to talk about. So can you get into a little bit about what we were just talking about? That the human is in fight and flight all the time. Yeah, absolutely. So we think we're so smart. We have these frontal lobes here. We can think, right? And so therefore we're at the top of the food chain. So we think we are so arrogant in so many ways. And the frontal lobes can be problematic because we have also instinct. We have that lizard brain, if you will. And we often talk ourselves out of our instinct or our intuition. The other thing is we have not evolved to the level of what it is that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So fight or flight was designed for an immediate threat. There's a tiger chasing you, something like that is happening. You have to mobilize your energy, and you're going to mobilize that energy. It's got to go to your arms, your legs, be able to run, be able to fight, be able to hide, your eyes. You've got to be able to see. There's got to be a focus. And when it does that, it's going to take the energy away from systems not deemed necessary or survival. That's going to be like the reproductive system, the digestive system. So that's fine. We mobilize that energy, we deal with the threat, and then we should calm down once we're in safety. Okay. We don't have that nowadays. It's not that we're always in fight or flight, but we certainly can be in a low level of it all the time. We have our threats, our tigers now are, oh my gosh, we have so many of them. There's traffic, there's weather, especially now we're getting even more stress over weather because more odd weather and more media about weather. There are relationships, social media. Oh my goodness, I agree with you. It's terrible. It's a neat thing, but it's also very problematic unless we manage it. Politics,
you name it. And we do know so much more what's going on in some little teeny tiny country we've never heard of. Or, again, what did you say? Cincinnati, anything like that, where something's happened there. And now we are bringing that here. From a hypnotic standpoint, anything that we put into our minds, pictures, images, that's going to imprint upon our brains. And so we're going to start figuring out ways how we're going to protect ourselves, or we're going to figure out ways. And we're figuring this whole figuring thing. We're thinking, we're overthinking. And then add to that, we're so focused on money that the things that we're afraid of are being amplified so that they can sell us things that will, keep us safe. And so fight or flight then is not conducive to getting pregnant or having a baby, because you don't want to stop to give birth when you're running from a tiger. It is not safe. If there were tigers everywhere and you had your little cave and you couldn't get out and there were tigers everywhere, it wouldn't be a good idea to procreate. And so that's what's happening to us with our new version of threat and the whole fight or flight thing.
I could not agree more. I mean, you just, they call a lot of these big events. This is obviously a conspiracy show, but, they call them high impact events. And I was just thinking the other day about, man, what just a pinpoint accurate term for it, in high impact. And what it does to us, it delivers trauma to us, and in a weird way also causes manifestation to get the elites to protect us from whatever shadow in the cave they're trying to get us to believe that is out there. And so, like, when you have these giant events going on, it's like, wow, you're totally right. Your fight and flight just totally kicks in. And you're not going to want to have children. What do you hear everybody say about having kids? I don't want to bring a kid into this world. I don't want to bring a kid into this world. In this world where this is going on, climate change is going to destroy us in 12 weeks. There's going to be no more planet. And then we just keep going. The cities, countries crumbling, law, disorder, and it's all meant to be like right here. Like bang right in your eye. And we're all addicted to it. We're all just constantly scrolling. What is the new trauma? What is the new fight? And then these algorithms start to figure out what is your trauma that really tweaks you. And then you just get into this algorithm where it's like, now it's nothing but street fights. That's all it is. I get nothing but street fights all day, to the point now I'm taking 3 martial arts because I'm pretty sure that everyone's going to come and try to take me out, and my body is breaking down. But that's a different discussion. The point is that this is having real effects on us.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of start to see, like, in this thing that I talk a lot about on the show, which is the difference between smart and intelligence. Intelligence is somebody who just knows the rules of the system and therefore can thrive inside. They understand the rules, the laws. Like, you could write an amazing book. You understand the rules of grammar, right? You could write the greatest script ever. But do you know how the world works on a street level? And that's what I call smarts, which is wisdom of experience. And what we're having now is a lot of intelligent people kind of opting out of this whole, like, having children. And they're very intelligent people, and they would put out very intelligent kids, and they don't want to have these kids. I think our gene pool is taking a giant hit on who is having kids and who is not having kids.
Yeah. The one thing, that you said, this world, and I literally did a talk a few years ago about this. Who wants to bring a kid into this world? Well, this world, this one that we're in right now, there's crazy stuff going on. There's stuff we don't like going on, but it's always been that way. And people want to look at Little House on the Prairie and little Laura Ingalls Wilder running through the field with their little pigtails. But back then, there were other problems. People lived to maybe be 40, 45 years old. People had famines, they had droughts, and you did not have any help If there was a snowstorm, if your crops died, you're out in the middle of somewhere in some little sweet, wonderful, lazy town, right? You're dying. People, in the 1600s and before that, after that, they had 10 children in order to hopefully get 2 to make it, to adulthood. I mean, it was throw spaghetti at the wall and see how much will stick. That's how they were trying to have children at that time. We've had wars and we've had all sorts of things that have happened over, the decades, over the centuries, over millennia. And it's what's happening to us now in the moment that we see. And it's just the thing now too, though, is we do have a lot of, extra reinforcement of how, bad in air quotes things are. So, and then the intelligence piece, that's really an interesting thing too. People equate intelligence with wisdom, which is not the case. I agree with you. It's more of the smarts thing with wisdom. You can know things. People are battling intelligence versus intelligence, which I will give you one piece that this is my opinion here, but you can't be intelligent unless you can look at both sides. You have to be able to argue for both sides. You have to look at both sides. You can form your opinion from there, but throwing out memes or throwing out opinions, that's not intelligence. And I'm from Canada, which gives me a really interesting look on things in the US, because I was raised a certain way regarding different things, guns and medical care and all of these different things. I come over to the US different. And so then I can see things differently. So I can argue you both sides, and then there's whatever I feel like. But that is something that's really important, because people are losing their intelligence. They may have a high IQ, but they're setting it aside because they're just getting
emotional
sucked into something. Emotion, exactly. Fear.
So I love this discussion because, I did go to Toronto recently, and, on this show, I could get some crap for saying this, but I felt like Toronto was, to me, and granted, I'm only there from Wednesday night to Sunday morning. So I'm cherry picking what I'm going to see. Right. And so I felt like when I looked around that Toronto to me was what humanity is possible of. The possibilities of humanity, meaning I looked around, it was diverse, everyone was getting along, everyone seemed happy, and on top of it, healthy. Everybody looked really healthy. And I go, this is what happens when you don't spend 50 cents of every dollar on the military industrial complex, right? And there's way more, I feel like, compassion. Now, that doesn't mean I don't love America. I think America is wonderful, and it has a lot of its perks too. Like, I'm sure if you go to San Diego, you'd be like, oh, this is what humanity's possible of too, so, right. But I felt that in Toronto. My question to you is, as a Canadian and as somebody who has been to America, do you live in the United States now?
I'm in Colorado. I've been in the U.S. since 93, and I'm a U.S. citizen and very proud to be.
Yeah, me too. So, but when I go to Toronto, I'm doing these comedy shows with these young comedians who are coming up, and they're all just hilarious. But there's no political correctness going on. And I go, what is this? How is this possible? And then I start to go, well, I don't think they have, and this ties into the fight and flight discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it's changing a little bit. And I'm sure I'll get emails telling me how wrong I am about this, but I feel that the media of the United States has weaponized us going back into this fight and flight, that there is this heightened sense of high impact trauma being put on by our media versus, let's say, Canada, where, their health care service, and this is not about health care, this is not a discussion, but their health care is about keeping costs down. People seem a lot more healthy to me overall. Their food, their skin, like the women's skin, like I'm a guy, I see the women in Canada, I'm like, oh my God, their skin seems to be cleaner. Do you think that plays into something that's going on when you talk about American culture versus Canadian culture, and what our culture is doing to our birth rate?
Well, interestingly, in The Handmaid's Tale, which was written by Margaret Atwood from Toronto, many decades ago. But the interesting thing about that is that the United States is where all of this is going on with the there's just so much, I guess, toxicity, and then women aren't able to get pregnant, so they have these ones that they've deemed the birthers and so forth. I don't know if you know the story, but and the interesting thing is they're trying to get to Canada, where it's more balanced and equal. And the interesting thing is that there's nothing that separates the U.S. from Canada. I mean, there's no like wall there, but yet right over the border, nobody's dying, nobody's got this poison, so it's kind of interesting how they do that. But that's kind of the interesting something that I noticed. And of course, I know Margaret Atwood because we had to read her in school when you grew up in Canada. She's one of those ones. But yeah, that definitely is playing into the fight or flight.
Hey, everybody. I want to tell you about our friends at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasoned recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit.
Take a bite out of summer with HelloFresh. From chef-crafted seasonal recipes to their new fresh and fit summer menu, HelloFresh brings flavor right to your door. Pre-portioned ingredients help cut down on food waste, while step-by-step instructions make cooking a breeze, not a chore. And nobody wants cooking to be a chore, right, Sam?
Right. Nobody wants it.
Featuring quality proteins, fresh produce, and plans for many lifestyles, it's no wonder why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
I love it. And you know what? I'm learning how to cook. I love learning to cook. I'm not the greatest cook, but thank you to these easy step-by-step instructions on how to cook, I'm learning how to do it. Okay? I'm becoming a chef, and I love it. So here's what I want you guys to do. Real fun, real quick, real easy. Go to HelloFresh.com/tinfoil50 and use the code tinfoil50 for 50% off plus free shipping. That's go to HelloFresh.com/tinfoil50 and use the code tinfoil50 for 50% off plus free shipping. So it's simple, it's fun, it's easy. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
I just had a couple of friends of mine, and one of them I went to high school with, and they were here a couple of weeks ago, and they live up north of Toronto, and they weren't happy with Canada, definitely not. And I'll tell you, there's pros, there's cons to living in both places.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely. So there's some great stuff, and then we have some great stuff. Canada, which this will get me into trouble, but we get influenced by the U.S. We don't like to think we're influenced by the U.S., but when I was a kid living right across from Buffalo, my TV, it was all Buffalo. It was all U.S. I knew about the Emancipation Proclamation in words. I didn't know what it was, but I could tell you those words. In the US, nobody knows anything about, Canadian stuff because you didn't have that kind of influence, right? So differences, Canada does tend to be more socially concerned. I mean, they are, plain and simple. They are. They care about children, and they care about, and I mean, on a big scale, I'm not saying Americans don't, but on a big scale, there's more programs in place when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Again, I think it's, when you live next to an 800-pound gorilla, that nobody's going to come and mess with you because that 800-pound gorilla is going to drop hammers on you. So there's like, I'm not saying Canada doesn't have a military. They have a military, but they don't have to spend as much on it because next door is a juiced out, like super tatted MMA, jujitsu gorilla who's going to cause chaos. So I find that interesting. So, everyone's talking about China's birth rate going down. I think America's birth rate is going down. They've been doing studies on that as well. And now they're pushing us into these, they've been corralling us into these big cities and what's happening in these big cities. People are like, well, I can't afford to have a children. I mean, I had 2 daughters. I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. But man, you go to these kids events, it's so expensive and all that stuff. So, but again, there's this famous kind of video that came out with Chelsea Handler, and she was discussing how thankful she is for not having children. And, later on, I saw this guy, Patrick Bet-David, who I love his show on YouTube. And he was breaking down that, like, she lost her brother when she was like 12 years old. And that was like her dad. And she was like, I had a crush on my brother in a brother kind of, loving kind of way. When he died on a hike, she saw the devastation in her parents' hearts that obviously resonated to the point where she's like, I never want to have anything in my life that if I lost it would devastate me the way my brother's death devastated my parents. And so she's always been very scared of it, but so now she's trying to promote this thing where I'm so happy I don't have kids. I'm 50 and I'm drinking vodka in the morning and my life is really great. And hey, teach your own. I'm not really sitting here trying to condemn that. Okay. But what I am saying is, like, when people don't have kids, talk about how happy they are not having kids. I go, well, you don't know the love of having children. You just do not know the love. And you can have a cat, you can have dogs, and I've had dogs and I've had cats, and it's nothing compared to the love of your children that you have. Like, there's just, it's undescribable to me. And it's like, when I think about the time, and I have my kids at 47 years old, so I got very lucky that I was a guy and I could have them much later. But when I think about my children, I don't remember a time without them. Even though they didn't come into my life at 47, I don't remember them not being here. It's like they've been with me my whole life. So I want to help people have kids. And I hope that people are listening to this, that they understand how amazing children are. I've had people come up to me, I didn't want to have kids, but I've been listening to your show. You make me, I want you to have kids if you want to have kids, if you want to understand the love. It is a lot of work for sure. I mean, some points you're just negotiating with terrorists. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are in control. And my mother gives me advice all the time on how to take care of my children. I'm like, you were allowed to beat us. We don't do that anymore. We have to sit down and have a negotiation with these 3-year-old Antifas. Okay. And I love them to pieces. So let's get into the whole point is like, I hope people just really don't fall for this kind of psyop out there that you don't have, that children are a giant waste of time and a giant waste of your resources. Because the truth of the matter is, my life is going really well because I wanted to be the best dad I can be. And I cleaned up a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of, and still doing a lot of cleaning up, trying to do the best I can, have some old wiring I'm dealing with, but it changes me as a person. What are your thoughts on what kids tend to do to people when they have kids? Do you have any thoughts on that? And then we'll get into some keys.
Oh my gosh. Totally have thoughts on that. Yes. I wanted children since I was a kid. I had this whole concern that people who wanted children wouldn't be able to have them, even when I was a kid. I had my oldest when I was 20. I did that on purpose, married and the whole thing. I wanted my children in this world. And part of it, I think, was for them to give me the inspiration and, the heart to do what I do now, because it's a risk. It is to have children. You're putting your heart on the line. You hear people say, well, I'm not ever getting another dog because it's too painful when I lose them. It is. But the love and the joy and the time that you got with those dogs, or our dogs, 2 of ours that we lost, they just crushed us. We have 2 more. And yeah, I don't want to go through that pain again, but then there's the benefit to it. When my, especially my older one, when he was a teenager, he had stuff going on. And sometimes it was hard to sit in there with my clients and, start from the beginning where you have a baby and everything is so wonderful. And, you're dealing with the teenage stuff, and it wasn't terrible, but, it's a teenager thing. And, you have that, you have your toddler thing and your teenager thing and all of that. I know all the mothers have all nagged you about this, but you don't ever stop worrying about them. You don't stop thinking of them. They're always in my thoughts. I just love them and I can't explain the love. But that is, I want you to have that love. If you do want children and you can't, it is heartbreaking. It is crushing. It is devastating. I mean, it's terrible. And if that's the love that you want, that's what I want you to have based on what I've had and obviously what you've had, Sam. I mean, oh my goodness. So yeah, that's my feeling on wanting them. It's fine if you don't want kids and you want to say how great things are. And I'm not going to say, well, you're probably feeling empty and you're probably, what is it? He who protests too much. Maybe there's something to do with that. Maybe it is for some people, maybe not. But if you want them and you get to have them, I mean, there's incredible love and joy. And yes, it takes investment, financial, energetic, emotional, all of that. But what do we have that's worthwhile that doesn't?
Oh man, I'm with you on that. I just love them so much, and I can't express the words on how much I love them. So let's get into this. Let's get into the 3 keys of HypnoFertility.
Okay. Well, so the 3 keys. So I have to back up a little bit because, like I said, I've always been just concerned that people who would love their children wouldn't be able to have any. And then that's not to say any old person, because a lot of people, back, especially, well, way back, but in the 60s and 70s, that's going to be where I'm familiar with, but people were beating their children. And I mean, abuse. And I know people put on Facebook these memes about, well, I got spanked and I stayed out till the street lights went on. Okay, that's fine. Spanked is not beaten. There was horrible abuse. There was a lot of abuse. Okay, there really was a lot of that. So that's one kind of issue that I was aware of. I was aware of that. I mean, I had a very dysfunctional family, and my dad's family was even worse than that, and it kind of went back. So it's not like I wanted any old person, and I was very aware. God, some people shouldn't have kids, including you, mommy and daddy. And but I still really had this thing about babies and people having their children and people who are going to love them. And I talk about when I was 9 and I was in the back of my parents' car, and the news report came on that the first so-called test tube baby was born in England. And I was so thrilled. I mean, I remember hearing it, sitting, like, snapping to attention. What is this? Listening to this report and having this relief flood me. Just, oh, thank goodness. People who really want their babies are going to be able to have them. Well, not quite as cut and dried as that, but the technology was beginning at that time. When I did have my son, my oldest one, Kelly, he's 33, and I wasn't planning to I didn't want to have another baby. I don't usually get into the whole reason I say I wasn't supposed to have another baby, but the reason is that my family, particularly my mother, had issues with the oldest child. So she thought that the oldest child, as she said, had it made. The youngest child got the shaft. That was her thing. The youngest gets the shaft. She'd always say that. I don't know if that's a saying or what, but she always say that. And she was the youngest. My dad was the youngest. My sister was the youngest. My mother, did the whole split, good child, bad child type of thing. And I was terrified because I was very aware that I would have a second child, and then I would project this whole thing onto them. Oh, you horrible youngest child, And so I wasn't going to have this second child, and things have been, put into place so that wouldn't happen. And then this little spirit baby shows up to me and says, "Hey, I'm your baby. I'm your son. Here's my name. You need to bring me into this world." And I'm like, Now I had been working on myself a lot, and I had been, on the spiritual journey, by then, long into it, because I started pretty young, even with that. And then it was like, okay, well, here's this baby. Now what? Like, this is insane in some ways. Like, what? There's a spirit baby talking to me. And this was when I got picked up and moved from Canada to the United States, and just kind of dropped in the US and began to explore things, because everything that I'd ever known was gone, gone from underneath me. I was just, whoa, free falling, and going from Toronto to rural Georgia. So, that was a big shock for me.
Yeah,
definitely.
that had to be.
Oh my gosh, definitely.
Can I ask you? I'm sorry, spirit baby. Can you explain that just for a second? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So spirit baby, basically, babies, we have energy around us. We're all energy, and then we're in a body. So spirit babies are our babies before they're in their physical bodies. So they're hanging around us. And that was one of the things that when women said, I know there's a baby there, I knew that they knew because we can feel it. And even if you can't feel it, doesn't mean there isn't one there. And now, of course, this, would go to my belief system, but I have spirit babies talking to me. And so, I believe in them. But it is.
Have you ever heard a male say? Have you ever heard a male say that he feels his spirit baby?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Have you ever had a male? Sorry, English.
Oh, okay.
Male.
Sorry,
male say.
Male.
A male.
I thought male say was a person at first. There, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, definitely. Men have their spirit babies, absolutely, and they'll feel them. And sometimes when women can't, they, if there's a male partner, they will. And gay couples, the same thing. I work with gay couples, be it male or female, but all of this does roll into that as well. So yes, males absolutely sense their spirit babies as well. I tend to work more with women because women tend to take responsibility for infertility, and then they'll take all the action. And even if it's 40% of infertility is male factor exclusively. Or male factor and female, but male factor exclusively, the women will still tend to take charge and take responsibility and be trying to resolve whatever the situation is. And obviously in same-sex couples, that's a little bit different. But yeah, to answer your question, absolutely, males do. And I've, see them floating around. At one point, my son, my oldest one, he was living with, 4 guys or whatever it was, 4 or 5 of them. And I'm over there and I said, all right, there's a spirit baby floating around here. You all need to be careful. Okay. I tell you. And they're used to, they're like, yeah, my kids grew up when Harry Potter was a big thing. So they love having the hypnotist, witchy, whatever mom who's got spirit babies flying around, but they didn't listen. And one of them, sure enough, is whatever, I can't remember his name, but he knocked up his girlfriend is the way they put it to me. I'm like, yeah, I know, I told you. They're floating around you, and they do sense them too. So men aren't always as maybe into it, but especially if they hear something like this and start to tune in, absolutely.
XG, you feeling something? Have you been feeling something?
I've always felt something. I'm Mexican. It's they're always crying. I hear it crying.
Oh,
it wants to come out. It wants to. I'm 30. I'm 30. It's like, come on, dude. You're 30 years old. It's time.
Oh, it's time. Yeah,
it's time.
Yeah. Right time, right way. That's what I always tell people: is right time, right
30
way.
30 Mexican is like 50 white guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So back.
Did I answer the question about what's a spirit baby? Did I?
I don't. I think you were almost done. Yeah. But is it like an aura? Can you see that? Is it something you can see when someone else presents?
I actually do see them. Yeah, I didn't used to see them. I would just kind of have a sense of them. And it's funny, I can't really see them on demand. They'll just show up when I'm not trying to do it. It's really funny. They're like, no, you're trying. No. And I'll be working with somebody and the babies will show up and I'll be like, okay, there's a boy, there's a girl, there's a boy and a girl. It seems like the boy is, coming first, that kind of thing. And the babies will help me to sort of know where their parents need to be maybe working on themselves. Now, not everybody's working on themselves and every baby's a spirit baby. I will say that. But the ones that I work with or the work that I do is different. It is actually part of it is about helping to save this planet or heal it, maybe would be the better thing to say. So, but yeah, I can see them and sense them. And just because you have spirit babies doesn't necessarily mean you have to bring them through, although sometimes they're coming through no matter what you do. And I had gotten an email from somebody a few years ago who took my class and learning how to do this work. And she said, you need to put a disclaimer on your class because she said, I was trying to not get pregnant actively. I got pregnant. I terminated. I went back to the birth control. I got pregnant again. So I kept the child because I kind of felt like I was supposed to. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you were.
Wow.
And that the child would have come through 10 more times. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it just really is. And it just needs to be. And then sometimes it isn't, with abortion, with termination, with miscarriage, spirit. So you could have, 2 baby bodies or 3 babies, like little, human children. And they may have come through like it, you can have 3 spirit babies that came through as 4 miscarriages and an abortion, and then ended up in the baby bodies. And that may be just 2 or 3 different spirits, and maybe more than one. So basically from the spirit baby aspect, it's a whole other plane. And, talk about, people say we're humans having a spiritual experience, but we're spirits having a human experience. And so the level that these spirit babies are on, they're not in our junk. They're not fighting. They're not prejudiced. They're not divisive. They're not any of that. And they're coming through. And nowadays, the people that are bringing them in, or the people that they're becoming, are much more aware. So there's more of the spiritual or the energetic piece coming through. So,
wow.
So cut and dried spirit babies are kind of there hanging around you energetically, and then coming through and becoming children. And some spirit babies will just hang out with you because they're not coming through in this life. Like maybe you've decided you don't want them, but it doesn't mean they're not still around sometimes to work with you too.
Amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So one more time, let's get into the 3 keys that you have for HypnoFertility.
The interesting thing about this work, and I tell you these, I mean, it can go anywhere, what I end up talking about. So Dylan, my second one, comes along. I end up finding a spiritual class in Georgia because I had to leave the one I was in at home. And we didn't have Zoom and all those things then. And I started doing this meditation work with this particular teacher that I found, and meet your guides and that kind of thing. And one of my guides came through, and in communicating, we were doing something called automatic writing. And it was interesting because I talk about this because it just cracks me up, but everybody was getting all of this information. Like you may have heard of like Jane Roberts and Seth, or those things that were channeled way back. This is kind of that automatic writing. And people were getting like sentences and chapters and, all of this information. I'm getting one word from my guide, one word. And the word was meditate. I'm like, okay, meditate. And I would just write this over and over, meditate, books and all sorts of paper. And eventually I got a second word, which was listen. And I'll just give you the 3 words, and then I'll explain how they become the 3 keys. And the third, I'm getting the second word. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. Come on. And I get one more word, which is trust. Meditate, listen, trust. So meditate does not necessarily mean, official meditation. It doesn't have to be seated meditation, transcendental meditation. It can be anything where we're going within, where we're shutting off the noise, shutting off the cell phone, taking a walk in nature, soaking in the bath, things like that. It can be doing your hypnosis. It can be having a Reiki session, anything, whatever you might be doing, taking a walk. This is that meditate piece. And if you look at, I really like the transcendentalists. And if you look at Thoreau and you look at Emerson, they were always taking a walk or a walk in nature. And so maybe not this so-called official meditation that we try to do, but it doesn't matter. It's going into some kind of quiet. When you do that, you can then listen. Then you can hear, and that's your inner world. You can hear when somebody says something to you that you need to pay attention to, but because it resonates with you internally and you can hear it. You can hear your intuition better. With fertility struggles, the intuition tends to get battered, and that happens with those dear frontal lobes, which come in and start overthinking everything. So then we don't know, because with fear, it's like, well, I got to do it now. I got to do it now. My intuition's telling me I got to do it now, but it's not because you got to do it now. It's because you're afraid. And so the meditate, listen piece makes you able to, hear that or resonate with, or know what it is that you resonate with, and then to trust it. And to be able to, I'm hearing I need to try naturally, even though I think I need to do IVF, and to be able to trust that, or I need to change clinics and to be able to trust that, or whatever it is. In some cases, it's, you know what, I really don't want to do this, or I'm with the wrong partner, or whatever it might be, but you can't hear any of it. And the things that we have buried within us can become blocks to fertility, because it's just this big tangled up mess of energy within us. So I realized, so my son ends up coming in, and these are the 3 keys I use to bring him through. And for all this healing that I have to, experience, and we're work in progress. I know you mentioned Sam's still cleaning up, and we always are. We're work in progress. And so this baby comes through, and I end up, fast forward, I end up in the hypnotherapy field and in Denver, and I start working with HypnoFertility, which end up creating, because it doesn't really exist, and mainly because I put my energy into it and really, really believed in it. And I go, oh my gosh, 3 keys, the 3 keys to conception: meditate, listen, trust. That's the 3 keys to life. If you want, if we could get everybody meditating, listening, trusting, even if it's just for a minute or 2 a day, we could create so much healing on this planet. And so that's part of what I help my clients to work with. And hypnosis it's very similar to meditation. All of these things can kind of fall in the category. We do have more with hypnosis. You go into that state, but you also have techniques that you can work there, is one of the things. But even accessing the state is going to then help to counter fight or flight, and help people to get back into rest and digest, or feed and breed. Nobody knows that. If I say to somebody, have you heard of fight or flight? Oh, yeah. Have you heard of feed and breed? No, what is that? Unless they're kind of in the world, like your world, where you interview people and you're talking about this kind of thing, the healing arts fields, or people that have been working on themselves, they maybe have heard of it, but we don't hear that term.
It's crazy. Feed. Okay, can you go a little bit more into what feed and breed is? A little bit
Feed and
deeper
breed.
into?
Yeah. So autonomic nervous system has the 2 branches: sympathetic, which is fight or flight, and parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, or feed and breed. We should maybe be in that fight or flight, 3% or so of our lives. It should be used when we need it. We need to, we need to protect ourselves, or we need to get ourselves to some kind of safety because there's a hurricane, or, things like that. We do need to have that. And then we should shift over into the feed and breed, or rest and digest, because that's kind of where we should be living. So it's very extreme to be in fight or flight. And like I say, when we're in fight or flight, the body is mobilizing energy, and it's a lot to keep that going. And it takes energy from the reproductive system and the digestive system. And it just throws us so badly off balance. And you hear a lot with fertility practitioners talking about, like, the gut, or we hear a lot about the gut these days anyway. People have leaky gut, or the gut needs to be healed. Well, how much does that have to do with being in fight or flight so much? And so there's no energy there. When women go into labor, if they're scared, and of course, in many cases they are, because what do we put in movies? What do we see on the news? It's always the scary stuff, right? So then they go into fight or flight. The energy is taken away from the uterus, away from the uterine muscles. Women can give birth in comas. You don't have to use your frontal lobes to give birth. Your body knows how to do it. But when you start thinking about it, overthinking about it, getting, scared, terrified, then you're going into fight or flight. That's where the pain comes from. When we talk about fear causes tension, causes pain. It's not to say it's not going to hurt to give birth, but it doesn't have to be agonizing. A lot of it is prolonged because of the fear. There's so much that goes into it. Whereas if we could keep women in rest and digest, or feed and breed, even to give birth and to conceive, and if we could all be in that, but you go on Facebook and you see a comment, and immediately, your blood pressure rises. You just like,
Yes.
And it's fight or flight right there.
Yes, I completely agree.
So you recommend home birth? 100%, obviously, because there's no other way to get it done at a hospital calmly. I mean, you show up and it's straight instantly, an epidural. I mean, at home do you recommend at home unless it gets life in danger type
I'm
of
definitely,
situation?
yeah, I'm not anti-home birth. I think I would, if I had a third one, I didn't have that option when my kids were born. And I joke that if I had a third one, which I'm not planning to do, but I would do this accidentally unassisted home birth. It's like, oops, I forgot to call you. And I just birthed my baby. It depends on the person, but certainly hospitals are being much more aware of this now than they were. You can thank capitalism for that in a way, because hospitals are a business and this is consumer driven, and women are saying, hey, or parents are saying, we want hypnobirth available to us. But you really have to be prepared, because in hospitals, I mean, they have a way of seeing things and thinking. And also, sometimes it's like the revolving door, where there's so many people at once and not enough people. And so if we could time this better, you hear a lot of that as well. But if you go in, if you've done your hypnosis or you're aware about the kind of birth that you want to have, people get the wrong idea about natural vaginal birth. Sometimes it's not possible. But if you're not prepared for it, like I know if people have said to me, oh, breastfeeding is so easy. I mean, in Mexico, they do it. They just have the baby and they breastfeed it. Yeah, but it's not like that here. In the US, it's okay if you have women, poured into a string bikini holding a beer, but you can't show a nipple. If a woman, everybody goes ballistic if a woman is breastfeeding on a park bench and somehow somebody sees a nipple.
It's so ridiculous. It's so
insane.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
It is. So breastfeeding's not easy a lot of times, because there's so much, there's a collective stress about it. There's a collective fear, and we are energetic beings as much as we are human, and we pick up on it. So there does need to be some support, some protection, but awareness about this. If people have a home birth and they still are doused with that fear, that's where things can go awry. And I'm not saying that, I'm not happy, everything is perfect. But so much of the way that we think can impress upon our experiences, not to say I thought of it, therefore I caused it, that's it. Because that's not, that's just detrimental to people in general. But yes, I like the concept of home birth. And there's some amazing support for that now. A lot of the hospitals are getting birthing centers attached. And that's where my son and daughter-in-law had my grandson. And it was beautiful. They were more hospital focused than I would be. But, that's the kid thing too. You have to let them be who they are. And but they did use the birthing center, and it did go beautifully, and they did have the support. And so, yeah, it's kind of a long answer to your question there about home birth, but nothing really black and white, I guess I would say.
So we're talking about getting women into a better mindset when birthing or wanting to get pregnant. Do you have any tips for altering negative subconscious thoughts to positive ones? This really resonates with me. I'd love to hear anything, because this spiritual journey I've been on, obviously the show started out as a conspiracy podcast and it's spun off a spiritual podcast. And I always say that, conspiracy always leads to spirituality. And a big part of my journey is basically me trying to either rewire my operating system, or just downloading a whole different operating system, and through writing down like everything I'm thankful for, and then my goals, but a real like change of how I see the world, how I interpreted things. I would always talk about this in recovery meetings, where like if you said, hey Sam, you can go on every ride at Six Flags except for that one ride, I would just focus on that one ride. Well, I can't go on that one ride. I want to do that ride. I don't care about all these other rides. I want to go on that. And that would always, like when I'm doing stand-up, everyone's laughing, but all I can see is one person just mean mugging me in the crowd. And I become like super focused on that, instead of going, wow, all this stuff is going really great. Let's a room of 200 people, 199 people are having the best time of their life, and this one person is just, I have to let it go, let it go, let it go. So are there any tips that you have for kind of changing how how you look at the world?
Yes, absolutely. So we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and I think it's something like at least 50,000 of those are the same, negative, and they're negative, and we can get into a rut. And so one of the things to do is become aware, and gratitude, of course, goes a long way. Gratitude is magic. I mean, truly, if people will, and you got to feel the gratitude. You can't just be like, thankful for this, thankful for that, thankful for, it has to be, really, truly, I'm thankful. And one of the things I do, and I advise people to do, because we go through it, it's almost like our little list. Thank you for my wife and my daughter, or my this or my that. But think about something that you can be grateful for that you don't think about, like, wow, I've got some grass, and look how beautiful that grass is. I'm really thankful to be able to have some grass. I could be living in some places just arid and, no water, or whatever the case. Water is my big thing. Oh my gosh, I love water. I will just go into true gratitude. I have clean water to drink, to cook with, to bathe in. Oh my gosh, water, and we so find something that you appreciate, but maybe don't think about. And so having gratitude certainly does help with that shift. Now, one of the things I talk a lot about toxic positivity, because you see the self-help world now, and everybody's like, you got to think positive, and if you think negative, that's what you're going to manifest. And you can't go around blaming people that have cancer that they had a negative thought and therefore that's what happened. We can certainly contribute to things with our thought patterns, and we have a negativity bias in the brain. So we are naturally going to think more negatively than positively. And that's survival. It's much safer to think that a stick is a snake and be cautious picking it up. If you're, going to build a fire, there's a snake. Oh, it's okay. It's a stick. You don't want to be just grabbing the snake thinking it's a stick. And then, so that is the negativity bias that's in our brain. It's another thing that hasn't, maybe evolved to the level of where we are, and really feeds into the fear. So having that awareness first and foremost, and then we can shift the way that we think. One of the most powerful tools, this is easy and it is powerful. It's a cognitive behavioral therapy technique. It's called thought stopping, or I call it the cancel technique, drawing a big red X. So you're paying attention to the way you're thinking. You catch yourself thinking something. Oh, that one guy in the audience, he doesn't like me, and this whole show is falling apart, or whatever it is. And you catch it, and you imagine drawing a big red X through it. Cancel. And you can say it out loud. You can say it in your mind. You can, draw the X. But then you have to replace that thought that you just removed with a positive one, or another one, because if you don't, just more thoughts will fall in. Nature abhors a vacuum. We got a hole, something's got to fill it. And then we got all these other 50,000 negative thoughts running around. Something like that will fall in. So we want to put something positive in whatever it is. I'm killing it, or this is such a great show, or whatever. I don't know. It would have to work for you specifically. You'd have to figure that out. Same with birthing or fertility. It's like, I'm never going to have a baby. I'm never going to, cancel. My baby's coming to me in just the right time, in just the right way. I appreciate my abundant fertility, anything like that. And the other thing, not just saying it, we've got to use the emotion. My baby's coming to me in just the right time and in just the right way, because our negative thoughts have all sorts of emotion. And so we want to use that for any affirmations. Affirmations aren't going to help you if you mutter them. If you read a whole bunch of them, no, but you gotta embody them or embrace them and give them some energy.
I believe, I'm on this spiritual journey, love Christ, getting into that and God and all that stuff. And I'm in this kind of battle with what they call the woo-woo, the Hermetic principles, right, all that stuff. And I do believe there's something to, God, Lord, Jesus, Son of God, and the Hermetic principles as a rule to work this realm we live in, the world we live in, right? Whatever you want to call it. And I do believe our thoughts manifest the physical, and our thoughts can create reality. I don't believe there is a reality. I believe there's only perception, and our perceptions create the reality. And I stand up again. You brought up you were giving examples of being on stage, but I mean, how I used to go on stage, I was so in fear. I was so in fear that I would bomb on stage because I convinced myself it wasn't going to go well. And then I did this thing called Birch Driver told me this a long time ago, something called retrocausality, which is this notion that it's not going to go well. It already went well. It's, that time is kind of like stacked like a book, and it's already, so it's like you're walking into something that's already going well, this mentality that it's going to work out. And I'm really in this place where, like, if it doesn't work out, that's because God has a bigger plan for me. And that, to think it's not going to work out the way it's supposed to work out is to believe in two gods. So that to me is about rewiring how I see the world. I used to be, I was raised by very paranoid people, and I love them so much. I wouldn't trade them for any other parents in the world. I'm so blessed to have them. I'm blessed to get all this amazing thing, sense of humor and work ethic. But I've also blessed to have watched my father make all these insane mistakes of not learning how to play the game. And I'm blessed that he did that, because I was starting to do those things too. And I caught myself going, I'm going to be making the same mistakes my father made. And he sacrificed a lot of his wealth and career, I think, to show me that that's not how we operate. And he's a wonderful man, and I love him very much. And I say that with great gratitude and appreciation. And now I realize that the game of life and that everything is a game. What is the game, and how do you play that game? And that to me is about rewiring how I see the world. And when I sit down and go, hey, here are 10 things that I'm very grateful for, that allows me to start changing how I see the world. Is it going well? Is it not going well? Well, it's going well. Is there turbulence? Of course, there's going to be some turbulence in life, but it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. And when it doesn't go the way I want to, is because there's something bigger coming down the line, and that I'm being prepared. I'm getting tools in my tool belt. I'm getting more bat weapons on my bat belt. So I totally agree with all that. And this whole thing about loving yourself too, like sometimes we're so hard on ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And we need to learn to love ourselves. Like I've always said this, like, you should be your biggest fan. Why not? Why not love you more than anybody else loves you? That doesn't mean don't let anyone in to love you, but love you. And just see what happens when you have positive thoughts on what you can do, the actions of some, I'm going to give birth. My baby's going to be fine. These are things that you can manifest. I believe it. I like to talk to people about content creating and what I've done in my life, or friends of mine that have done. And I talk about, giant YouTube channels, giant podcasts, whatever the content you're creating is. The difference between them and a lot of other people is that the people who've succeeded went for it. They really, they took action, and they put out the energy, and they manifest in their head that it was possible. Because if you don't believe it's possible, it's probably not going to happen.
Oh, no, absolutely. And to your point about parents, I mean, I wouldn't have, where we say we pick our parents, and I believe we do, I wouldn't have maybe consciously wanted that, but it contributed to who I am, and I really got it. And I learned a lot of compassion for what they went through. And I was very aware, and of course it drove me to oh my gosh, study, psychology and human behavior and so much compassion, which I have, and it gives me a lot of hope too in bringing these babies through and hope for our planet. And I've had a few people say to me, so you're hopeful? I mean, you actually the only hopeful person I've talked to in a long time. And I'm like, yeah, I do feel a lot of hope. Sure, there's a lot of shit going on, if you will, pardon my language, but there always is. My big thing talking about toxic positivity is extremes. And this is what's kicking our butts in this world is extremes, black and white, black and white, black and white, where there isn't. So extreme positivity, oh, I'm having a bad day, so I've just ruined everything, right? Or, oh, I had a bad thought. That doesn't mean everything's going to fall apart. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm like you too. When I used to pick myself apart, I would give a talk and then I would just go over it and over and over it afterward. And I'd be so paranoid. And, all this work eventually before my podcast. And if I have an interview, I just, I sit for a few minutes and I just send out, intention, whatever needs to be talked about, whatever, that it goes whatever direction it needs to go. Everything is covered that needs to be. Whoever needs to hear it hears it, and that's kind of it. And then I let it go. And then once I'm done, thank you so much. And then I see it, when it drops. But I don't worry about it at that point because I know exactly what needed to happen. Did and yeah, with the God thing. Maybe a higher intelligence or higher power, however you want to explain that. I tell people you live in your own world. You don't have to live in this one big one. You can have your own. And so when people say, well, what about that? Or aren't you afraid of that? I say, that's not in my world. That's not in my world. And so we can interact with all our little world bubbles, mine and yours and all of ours, we're interacting. But if something just doesn't fit for you, so if a particular religion doesn't fit for you, that's okay. It doesn't have to be in your world or a way of seeing things. And I always thought, because I was really open, and I always thought that, everybody mattered, and the things that were similar or the common threads in all the religions meant we could all get along. And I learned that people did not think that they thought, no, it is this way and that's it. And I thought, well, it's a higher way of thinking to realize that everyone matters and everyone belongs. It doesn't matter if it's a higher way of thinking if no one thinks that way. So in my world, that's the way people think.
Well, I love that. And that's totally the way I see the world. And I would love for everybody to get along. It's like, there's so many people that don't see the world my way, and I still love them and I want them to be in my world. And I don't want to be in a world where I only talk to people that I agree with. That seems awful to me. And, I've done this long enough. It's very interesting when people become awake, not woke, but awake. They become Paul Revere and they get on their horse and they yell about the lizard people are coming or whoever the bad people are. And they have so much passion in their eyes that it's almost like this kind of like, I don't know, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man just going around. You're just knocking everything over with your passion. And then over time, you start to realize that like you can't save anybody. And that the best way to change the world is to change yourself. And that's it. But when you're early on in the journey, you're just like, oh, wake up. All these things are going on. And I started to realize like, what is the purpose of trying to save the world if I'm going to be miserable in it? If I'm going to be miserable and lost in all the things going on, let it go, let it go, let it go. And like when I really go, all this stuff that I see going on in the world and I know what they're trying to do, I just feel that like if I just focus on all this bad, it's like why I'll never be a black pill. I never want to be like, there's no hope. I want to be like today where I am in this room talking to these three people that I'm loving talking to, having one of the best conversations I've ever had. My life is pretty good. It's Bill Hicks's old story about watching the news and he opens up the window and outside it's sunshine and blue skies and the birds are chirping. That's how I want to live my life. That's how I want to do it. So I want to wrap on one more thing. How do you think we can align our subconscious thoughts with our conscious behavior? This is to me like the gold. Well, how do we do that in your opinion?
So that's definitely where we need to be aware And, one way we can do it is using the cancel technique. You can use, forms of self-hypnosis to do that. One of the things is if there's blocks going on within and you don't address them, then, your conscious mind is just not going to be able to get on the same page. And that's part of what I do with fertility clients is you might want a baby, want a baby, want a baby, but subconsciously something might be, blocking it or in the way. So it will be looking to explore that. And it might be through hypnosis or hypnotherapy. It might be self-hypnosis. It definitely incorporating that thought stopping is good. It might be a therapist, spiritual, learning, groups, if they're good for you, if they feel like a fit for you, meditation. But one of the things we have to remember is just saying something isn't necessarily going to change it. So we have to be aware. I like to think with myself, I've taken myself and I've torn myself apart and I've spread myself out on the floor and I've looked in this and looked in that. And that's a really important thing. So, being aware. And, I kind of hate that whole, I've had this conversation a little bit about awake and woke. It bugs me that they use that word because awake was a really good word for, and we were using it decades ago, we're awakening to this, Rumi talked about awakening. And here now I almost don't want to say the word because it triggers people to go off this way and that way. So these are some of the things to be aware of. How are you being triggered? There's a hypnosis in the world. People talking to you in little sound bites and using any kind of emotion that's going to right straight into the subconscious mind. So we need to use those types of things to counter those, and so that we can be how we want to be. With the world piece, I have my world, and I can bring anyone into it. I just don't have to be in theirs. And so I don't have to get upset, or I don't have to get angry. I don't have to get terrified. That's what I mean. It's not that I want everybody to be exactly like me. I don't, because then we wouldn't learn and we wouldn't grow. But yeah, that would be, what I would say is you've just got to get it at the subconscious level. That's the emotional part of your mind. One thing that you can do is to have emotion and be aware of your emotion, and don't stifle it. Don't stuff your emotion. If you're angry, let yourself be angry. You just don't want to stay there. If you're sad, be sad. It's okay to be sad. You look at grief, we're allowed 3 days on this, in our culture. You get 3 days, you get 3 days off, spouse died, child, parents, friend, it doesn't matter. 3 days. Okay, you're done. Let's go back to work. So I think that's a huge piece there.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And again, you go back to these studies where they've seen how energy affects water. We're 90% water. So it's just the energy, and it's vibrational. And, I really try to, with my younger cousin, I try to install in him higher vibrational actions, bring in higher vibrational people. And our culture, to me, is teaching the opposite of nature. Everything is, it's easy versus simple. Easy is quick fix stuff, fast food, our culture, pornography, drugs, all that stuff is quick fix. Simple is meditation, eating right, working out, gratitude list, connecting, model of abundance, law of nature, all that stuff is simple. The things that bring you closer to God. When you get closer to God, you vibrate at a higher level. When you get farther from God, you start to be on all these medications. You start to, and it gets into also this whole thing is people, the more and more I do this, the more and more I start to realize that, people need food, shelter, clothing, but they also need purpose. And these people find purpose in these crazy things, fighting these wars against things where there are no goal lines. We're fighting racism. We're fighting homophobia. We're fighting climate change. We're fighting there's never a goal line that says, hey, we've achieved our goal. It's just, you're never meant to be. You're meant to be Don Quixote, get on your horse and charge a windmill because it gives you a purpose. And I don't know if there's a way to figure out how to have purpose in your life, but I really do believe just working on yourself is a wonderful way of doing it. working on yourself, going these, and again, going back to something that we talked about, and we'll wrap it up here, is that, the light and dark and the duality. It's like there's things that I need to work on myself, but it's like I have to also appreciate my dark side, my darkness, and I can't be all light, and that's a big problem in modern culture, especially in therapy. I think there's this notion that people think that if they have a dark side of them, their darkness, that like they have to do everything to get rid of that darkness. And I just don't think that is possible. I think we all have light and we all have dark, and we have to constantly use our darkness to propel our light. It's like when I go to a recovery meeting, someone's been sober for 40 years, but still says he's an alcoholic. That to me is somebody who understands their darkness, and that darkness is always going to be there. And they use that darkness to fear that darkness to inspire their light. So I don't know how to tell somebody to find a purpose, okay? But find purpose inside yourself. Not saying that we should be okay with racism or sexism or homophobia. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this notion of thinking that you can march your way to change the game. And I've just learned in my life the best way to change the game is to beat the game, and to beat the game is to work on yourself and inspire others. And I feel that like this kind of fits into what we're talking about today, through through your hypnotism, and the HypnoFertility is the like working on yourself and being a better person. And by working on yourself through HypnoFertility, you have a child, you show other people how to do it, and then they start to do it. And then that's how you change the game, is by beating the game. That's just my humble opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, I use therapeutic hypnosis, of course, specifically in certain situations, but we can use the 3 keys. They don't have to be like, they're not mine. I came up with I learned the words for them in that context, but meditate, listen, trust. I mean, that's how you find your purpose. If you're going quiet, you'll hear a calling. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, the mythologist. And, he's always talking about hearing your calling, and Carl Jung, all about individuation. But you can hear your calling or not. You can say no, but it'll still come back to you. And you can end up living a life where you've just done nothing but ignored your calling, which is a purpose, I guess, in and of itself. Or, open up and just be willing to listen.
And not be afraid of change. I think that's a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
People want change without making change. And I think that's a big, big problem. Lynsi, this has been one of the best conversations we've ever had on this show. So I'm very thankful for you coming on. One more time, if people loved what we talked about and wanted to contact you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Easiest way is the website. It's hypnofertility.com.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Again, we've added this New York City date. We're still trying to get the ticket link, but if everything goes according to plan, we have a date set with the Cutting Room. We can't wait to perform at this amazing thing in New York City. So that's being added. We got Connecticut on a Saturday and New York City on a Sunday. Please go to samtripoli.com. Those tickets will be up very soon. So please join us. Hopefully the place will get the tickets up. And again, I want you guys to enjoy these highlights of all of our other shows that we do. And if you like them, give those shows a listen. It's been really helping. All of our shows are popping up in the top 200 of comedy on Apple. So we're very thankful for that. And we hope you enjoyed this conversation. Hope you guys get a lot from it. I know I did. Again, Lynsi was amazing the first time I talked to her, and she did not let us down this time. So again, thank you, Lynsi. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please enjoy these highlights.
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim. So I told you I went to see Sound of Freedom last week on the last episode. And have you heard about the conspiracy theories coming out around this? And I kind of believe them because one of them happened to me. Here we go. Conspiracy theories involving viewer suppression of the film Sound of Freedom continue. This is from Newsweek. Even as the film was top 3 in last weekend's gross box office. The film was produced by indie company Angel Studios and stars Jim Caviezel as Tim Ballard, a producer, on the project, who in reality left his position as a former Homeland Security investigations agent to start the anti-child sex trafficking organization, Operation Underground Railroad. So here's what people are saying. Not only are they suppressing the box office, but there was a fake story going around. This woman says, there was something that got passed around on social media that turned out to be fake. It was a woman saying, I work at AMC, and I just got fired for refusing to add this liquid to a customer's soda. Now, this rings to me as more of like psyops. This is a psyop. We were instructed specifically to serve this to Sound of Freedom audiences. I'm a microbiology student and took it to the lab to examine and found what looks like nanobots inside.
So you're saying this isn't real? It turned out to be
but all the
real.
images she shared were just images that were elsewhere on the internet, like predating this.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
well, you know, Johnny, did we get in this before about how there's people out there that grift on this stuff?
We talked about a little bit. Like I was asking you last week, like why you think people do that?
It's for clicks and views. It's like
you said last week you think it's to discredit.
Well,
people.
I also believe there's some intelligence. I'm not saying this chick is necessarily intelligence, but there is intelligence at work to cause nonlinear warfare.
Chaos. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what the dark force is chaos. We know that. And any way they can establish chaos, they're doing it. But and I think it's meant to discredit the very real claims, one of which I experienced. Here's one example. A TikTok user who had exited a screening of the film said there were shenanigans going on as part of his viewing. AMC, I don't know what's going on, but first off, the AC was out when I went to watch the movie. That was my experience too, dude. AMC, there was no air conditioning in this screening that I went to. It was really hot in there. It was really hot.
It's very
and
crazy.
I've never had that happen
it's
before.
So weird.
And the AMC we were in is the crown jewel for AMC, the one at Century City. It's the nicest AMC in the country, probably, as far as this technology they have there. And they didn't have the AC on. Bizarre.
So my fiance and I just watched the movie Sound of Freedom that exposes sex traffickers. And do you want to tell them what happened in the movie theater?
All right, AMC, I don't know what's going on here, but first off, the AC was out, like when we went to watch the movie, and I'd seen someone else post something too that also saw it at an AMC, and their AC was out, and like as soon as we walked into the theater, it was hot as heck.
I literally brought a sweatshirt and I was like sweating.
And then we realized, like,
take it off.
It took us a while to actually realize it, but they didn't turn the lights off.
They literally had the lights on.
They kept the lights on the entire movie.
Who does that?
Like,
they don't want you to see this movie.
Anyway, interesting. A lot of stories like that coming around the country. If you go on Twitter, they're everywhere. Conservative Matt Wallace, who has 1.1 million followers, tweeted, Hollywood desperately tried to block this from theaters. Other claims include that they're suppressing attendance for Sound of Freedom. Yesterday, we showed the movie 3,000 times at our 570 theaters, and more than 100,000 people watched it at AMC theaters. Misinformation on Twitter is astonishing. That's what a representative of AMC said. So, is it bots or haters? He said, but I can tell you that in my limited experience, they did.
They fucked with you.
Yeah, they fucked with me. Yeah, and then I saw this, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's like really sad. And
I could see it being like something they're doing on a local level, just to try to like disrespect that audience, maybe.
But it sounds like it's happening on a national level, and it's crazy because AMC is so dumb. Because nobody's going to movies. You finally have a movie everybody wants to see, and you're trying to make it miserable. But all this is about getting you not to go to the movies. I mean, they don't want you go. Dude, they want you locked in your house. I'm convinced, bro, this is what all of this stuff on planes is about. All these people freaking out, they don't want you flying. All right, guys, real quick, I want to tell you about our affiliate program on samtripoli.com. I'm working with some really wonderful people trying to get you the best of the best that I think is important for you in the upcoming zombie apocalypse, okay? So we have, if you're looking for gold and silver, who knows what's going to happen with the fractional reserve banking system? It could collapse at any moment, maybe in August. We don't know. If you go to buy gold and silver, go to samtripoli.com, samtripoli.gold. You can join the Wise Wolf program, and they will ship out to you monthly installments of precious metals. I do it every month. I'm getting sent precious metals, a lot of silver, some gold. I love doing it. It's a great way to stock up on precious metals. Aqua Cure hydrogen gas. I've had people hit me up, tell me they love doing it and how it's really working for them. I have it at home. I have to hook it up. It's a lot of stuff I'm working on, but I'm going to put it together so I can start breathing that sweet, sweet, sweet hydrogen, man. Give me that sweet hydrogen. But click on that. You can use the promo code right there. It says it right there on the banner. Use that. Joel Staley is a good friend of mine, and he helped me lose a lot of weight. I am now doing the 75 hard, leading into going back into fasting. I'm training my body, doing fasting. Joel Staley has a proven system that will help you lose weight. Again, just click the banner, use the promo code, and Joel Staley will work with you. He's going to help you, if you do it right, lose 25 to 50 pounds in 90 days. That's like half a person right there. Harley Ray. We love, yay. Yeah. We love the Harley Ray people. We love them. Look at that size of that. What was that crystal right there? Holy
dude,
crap.
I got a ton of these for she sent them to us for Broken Salmon. They're great, man.
Look at those. Damn, bro. They're huge, dude. They're huge. I know XG thinks there's something else.
I was about to say, careful with that, ladies.
Yeah, okay. Going back. Again, if you just use...
God, those are big. What? I mean, that's like her whole forearm.
Yeah. Easy, guys. Easy. They listen to the show. Their parents listen, too. Please stop. But if you use Swarm 15, you get 15% off anything you're buying. And finally, Legal Shield. If you're looking for some legal help, they do a monthly thing. And with that, you can they got different law firms they work with that can help you sign up and get some legal help on certain things. So check that out. Again, Legal Shield, they're there to help, and that's our affiliate. So all right, check it out. Help us help you. Help us help you.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Tinfoil hat.